When you think of hated versions of Windows, or versions of Windows that have horrible reputations, one such version of Windows comes up pretty commonly: Windows Vista. A name that was scoffed upon harshly upon its initial release. It's honestly not as bad as you remember it if you grew up in that time frame. Was it buggy and unstable? Yes, but over the years, updates have fixed this, and in fact, Windows Vista has a strong defensive cult following, sometimes a little too defensive due to the amount of children that enjoy that version of Windows to this day. Now, before I go into the history of Windows Vista, a brief shameless plug of sorts. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because, one, I couldn't find any articles from the news from Vista's time, and two, I'm already doing a series of videos about the development and the history of Windows Vista, so I'd rather save this for a lot of this stuff for that video. But to put it simply, the plans for Windows Vista can be traced back to before even Windows XP released from 1999. After Windows 2000's release, and after the Neptune and Odyssey projects were consolidated into Windows Codename Whistler, we get immediately into the next three versions of Windows. Windows Codename Whistler, which became Windows XP, Microsoft Codename Blackcomb, which got cancelled, and to fill the gap between these two big versions of Windows, there was supposed to be Windows Longhorn, which is a clever codename scheme because there are two mountains in British Columbia called Whistler and Blackcomb, and there was a bar in between these two mountains called Longhorn. Quite a good play on words there, huh, Microsoft? I mean, it's still a tinge more creative than Microsoft's codename Redstone, which was used for Windows 10, or the codenames of like Windows 11 and whatnot. But with Windows Whistler having released as XP and things going to plan, it was now Windows Longhorn's turn. Some of the earliest claimed builds that BetaWiki does not claim are real are Windows Longhorn build 3551. However, I can't find any clear concrete evidence that these builds exist. The earliest known build with a disputed status is Windows Longhorn build 3663, and the earliest available build is Windows Longhorn build 3683. Windows Longhorn had three main pillars: WinFS, Avalon, and Indigo. By August or so of 2004, development was not going well, and as such, development on Windows Vista was reset using Windows Server 2003's proper codebase. A series of builds would follow, and with build 5112 from 2005, the official name of the project was changed from Longhorn to Windows Vista. In November of 2006, Windows Vista was released to manufacturing and was released to the general public in January of 2007. And how did everyone respond to this new flashy version of Windows, which changed a lot of different things in Windows and that Microsoft had basically been working their asses off for the past 5 years on? Oh wait, I think you already know. Everyone hated it. A particularly unstable release of Windows at launch, Windows Vista quickly got a reputation of being one of the worst versions of Windows that Microsoft had made. Now, I should mention that over time, this reputation has cleared up to some extent. However, there are still clearly at least a handful of people that don't like Windows Vista. And I mean common sense. I, for one, had a soft spot for Vista, primarily due to my intrigue regarding its features that were not present in later versions of Windows, even as early as Windows 7. And in fact, Windows Vista was a bit misunderstood, primarily because just because a thing is unstable upon launch doesn't mean that it's always going to be that and that changes can be made. And furthermore, it came out at a slightly inconvenient time, and so a lot of computers that were quote-unquote designed for Vista did not really run it all that well. Also, as a side note, there was a Windows Vista capable sticker campaign on select Windows XP computers, and this got Microsoft in a class action lawsuit. At least it was for some time. It apparently got downgraded to a not class action lawsuit. That's at least according to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Okay, I'll admit that's kind of funny and fitting given my roots in French and Canadian history. But Windows Vista was discontinued in 2017, which got a lot of press attention. Anyway, I think we should take a look at the computer that we're going to be using this on. We're going to be using a Dell Vostro 230, which originally shipped with Windows 7, and you may remember this video last being used in a Windows 7 Vista dual boot thingy, Well, long story short, it didn't really work out all that well, and so I opted to just ditch Windows 7. I still have to format the former Windows 7 partition and incorporate the size into my main partition, but that's for another day. That's not gonna get a video. This system is actually not that bad, sporting an Intel Core 2 Duo E8400 at 3 GHz, 4 GB of RAM, a 500GB hard drive, an NVIDIA GeForce 310 that is unfortunately not going to get to see a lot of use in this video because I don't have a lot of Windows Vista games. You're welcome. Steam cutting support for 7 and 8.1 and integrated audio. So, I suppose we should go start this up. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the old. Now, just as a note before we get into the programs, I'm not going to go over the accessories this time because they are relatively insignificant in Vista because they were just left for the end and not a lot of changes were really made with them. Nonetheless, we do have the Welcome Center, which starts up on Windows by default, and it generally is like a, welcome to Windows kind of thing. Check out these different tasks. Anyway, we have Windows Calendar, which is a calendar application which allows us to schedule appointments, I guess, as a usual calendar application would. And this is the first time that Windows would have a calendar application since Windows 3.x in the early to mid 90s. We can set reminders and whatnot, meaning that this is a bit more useful than the Windows 3.1 calendar, so I'll give it that. We also have Windows Photo Gallery, which is a new application to Windows, allowing us to view photos and whatnot, and it provides metadata and whatnot. I've got a couple pictures from 2024, so I'm gonna use those. Some nice pictures. And this. Face reveal. No, just kidding. What we can't really get in depth about is meeting space. And we also have Windows Meeting Space, which would allow you to... I'm not entirely sure what this would do, but I think if I remember correctly, you could, make video conference things in it, which, given the more recent times where video conferences are more common, I'm surprised that they added this in Windows in this version only and never brought it back. Not even in Windows Live. If I had to guess, this likely would have something to do with not a lot of use, because even though this replaced Net Meeting, so I don't have a lot of things I can say otherwise about this program. We also have Windows DVD Maker, a DVD making application that requires strictly DVDs. This time we can actually go ahead and give this a go, so that's what I did. As usual, we can preview the disc, and let's go make that DVD. For the first time on this channel, I'm demonstrating this program. I mean, common sense, because I should also mention the amount of stuff that I actually have to show off with the second half of these videos is actually a tinge on the dry side, so something's better than nothing. And now we can go immediately give this disc a preview and watch it and stuff in Windows Media Center, which is now included with Windows, unlike how it was in Windows XP, where it was included in a separate version of Windows that specialized in it. This likely had to do with the fact that Media Center was quite popular, surprisingly, because at least with OEMs, so fair point. Linux! Please make it stop! Ah! We can also play games in Media Center such as Purple Place, which isn't the most resource-intensive thing. However, I don't have a lot of games I can openly try on Vista, as I previously mentioned. So something's better than nothing, at least. There's also Windows Media Player 11, which I also showed in my Windows XP video. Well, here it is on the platform it came pre-installed on, and this was the only version of Media Player that I know was available on Vista. There's also Windows Movie Maker, which allows us to make movies and stuff. Not like Hollywood level movies, but I think you can get the point. Alright, let's check this. Alright, let's check this sucker out. Now that we've got this big masterpiece done, let's go publish it. And then followed up with my camera getting too hot and then powering off. Great job, Sony. But before we move on, I do want to mention that while most accessories were basically the way they were in XP with Vista Arrow stuff, there are some new things. Particularly Snipping Tool, which allows us to take screenshots from our computer, which is a first for a version of Windows. I mean, sure, it does have this red border around it, but it's still a start. And if you don't want the border, then you can just control print screen, or just print screen. And there's also Windows Journal, which allows us to take notes. So now, let's move on to the programs that I think were popular during Vista's time. Starting with Microsoft Office 2007, mainly looking at Microsoft Word here. We can type stuff and whatnot in here, so that's kind of cool, I guess. We'll just go to, where is it, Comic Sans? We'll make this very fully. We also have Microsoft Excel, where, once again, we can be clearly biased towards the best berry of them all. And I accidentally turned this into a 30th century thing. 1E plus 25. Yeah, right, this year we are getting all the blueberries. Oh wait, this is 900 years in the future. We also have Adobe Photoshop CS3, albeit in a trial form, where we can do unfunny Photoshops. No. That doesn't look funny at all. You know, I suck ass at Photoshop. As well as Adobe Premiere Pro CS3, which I'm not gonna really go in depth about because I don't think it wants to really cooperate. We also have Mozilla Firefox. And once again, the Book of Mozilla from Netscape. Mammon slept, and the beast reborn spread over the earth and its numbers grew legion. And they proclaimed the times and sacrificed crops into the fire with the cutting of foxes. And they built a new world in their own image, as promised by the sacred words, and spoke of the beasts with their children. Mammon awoke, and lo, It was not but a follower. From the Book of Mozilla 11.9, 10th edition. iTunes, which is Apple's music playing program. And if we want a bit of both, there's also Apple's web browser Safari, which I made a video about. And that's generally going to conclude the main program stuff, so let's move on to gaming. As I mentioned, there isn't a lot of games that we can really give a go from Windows Vista's time, because Steam has not been a thing on Vista for years, and I don't really have a lot of games I can play that are from Vista's time. Nonetheless, we do have some games, so there's a variety of PopCap games, starting with Peggle. Next up, Touhou 10, because not 7 this time, because of the fact that the first gen Touhou games seem to not like Windows Vista and 7 and combined with NVIDIA cards. There's Bejeweled Twist. Missed Masterpiece, which this thing can apparently play like a champ. I didn't even realize that this game is very simple. And it's generally going to be about it for the games that are not included with Windows. So let's move on to some games that were bundled with Windows, because Windows got some new games at this time frame. These will likely be brought forward into 7's video. So the two ones that I'm going to look at are Chess Titans, a chess game, because everyone likes chess, and a lot of people play it these days, honestly. I'm kind of surprised how many times Microsoft has predicted things that would be more relevant in like 15 years time from when this OS came out. And last but not least, Solitaire. The reason why we're looking at Solitaire is because these graphics are quite impressive for Solitaire, and also, I think you've seen the Vargskelethor Joel video where he crashed Windows Vista with Solitaire. So this thing can actually run Solitaire. And that's generally going to be about it. To summarize, Windows Vista is not that bad of an OS, but was released at a poor time, and a lot of people did not like it because of this combined with instabilities. Windows Vista is honestly, as I mentioned, not really that bad, because in some cases, the versions of Windows that have horrible reputations sometimes don't really live up to those horrible expectations. I can think of another example that isn't Windows Millennium Edition, which I should look into. Is it really that bad? I don't know. But we'll look at that a different time. Maybe I'll even give it a go for a week.